How you doing? And welcome to Neither Real Music. I'm Ed. This is One Major Method, my weekly series dedicated to the first year beginner guitar player. We have been working on basic strumming, getting used to a down strum, understanding our rhythms, and how to change basic chords on time. In this last video, I'm going to be showing you just a few exercises that mix and match all the different things that we've worked on in the past videos. For this video, I'm going to use the chords D, C, and G. This chord change might seem a little tricky, but it is one of the most common chord changes in music. So if you can master this particular chord change, you'll find that you'll be able to play a lot of different songs. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe. I really would like this channel to grow, and every subscription helps tremendously. Also, ring the little bell for notifications so you know when your next lesson starts. Let's take a look at our first example. In our first example, we put a half note on the first beat, and we're going to be playing on beats 3 and 4 as well. So we're going to strum on beat 1, it's going to ring through beat 2, and then we're going to strum again on beat 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C, 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 G, 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 D, D, D. Take your time with this particular pattern. If you have to, pause the video, just look at the strumming, and focus on the chord change and use a metronome at your own pace. My metronome is set at 60, and if you have to move it to a slower pace, feel free to do so. Let's take a look at this pattern for 12 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C, 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 G, 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 D, D, As you're working on this particular chord change, don't let how I'm playing a certain chord affect how you would like to play the chord. If you play D with a bar or with 3 fingers, that's fine. If you play G with all 4 fingers, or you want to put your 3rd finger on the 1st string or your pinky on the 1st string, or avoid your pointer finger completely, all of those are correct. Don't let someone tell you how to play a chord if the chord you're playing sounds fine. Just work with what you've already got. In this example, you're going to see that we're starting to mix and match our different rhythms together. Our chord change is going to be exactly the same, but pay attention to each measure because it's not a cycle anymore. It's a unique pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, C, C, G, 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 D, 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 D. This pattern mixes whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. So instead of learning one measure at a time, you're learning a pattern that cycles over 4 measures. This is really common. You learn a strum pattern that goes over 2 to 4 measures, and then that whole thing cycles over and over again. So let's take a look at this pattern for 12 measures so you can practice. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, C, C, G, 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 D, 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 C, C, G, 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 D, 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 C, C, G, 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 D, 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 D. An idea like this is often done when a person is singing. If a person has a lot of words to say, it makes more sense to let the chord just ring and let the rhythm of the words drive the song. If there isn't a lot to say and it's one word being sung for a long period of time, it's better to let the chords carry the rhythm. This way there's always something interesting for the ear to follow. In example 3, we're going to be continuing this concept, mixing and matching rhythms with the chords that we've already established. So let me give you an example, and then we'll go and play it for 12 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C, 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 G, D, D. The only difficult thing about this section might be the fact that you're using quarter notes on beats 3 and 4, and then you're doing a chord change and using quarter notes again on beats 1 and 2. This provides you with very little time to change the chord and be accurate. Remember what I said in the previous videos. Don't stop. If you make a mistake and everything sounds awful, just move on to the next part. Take your time with building these sections, but don't stop when you make a mistake. Just move on to the next chord, move on to the next beat. Let's take a look at this section for 12 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C, 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 G, D, 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 C, 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 G, D, 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 C, 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 G, D, 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 C, 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 G, D, D. Don't be afraid to pause. Don't be afraid to go back and look at this. And remember what I said about your fingers. Whatever way you know how to play a chord and it sounds correctly, play it that way. We're on to our last example in this series. Once you understand down strums, the up strum will be significantly easier. You'll notice that the down strums primarily occurred on quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. And while most of the time this is going to be the most common use of it, I can't say that it's the only use of it. When we start adding in our up strums and move into more advanced strumming, you will see that sometimes things aren't always as easy as this. Work through each exercise and assemble them together. Then go back and look at simple songs and see if some of the things that I've been explaining to you start to make sense. Then practice those patterns and you'll see that you can start to work them out easier. Let's take a look at our last example. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C. G, G, D, D, D. So we are putting the half note in different spots as we move through the sequences. Sometimes they're on beat 2, sometimes they're on beat 1, sometimes they're on beat 3. They can never be on beat 4. But this provides some sort of interest and unique pattern that can come up. If you take this idea and apply it to power chords, you might notice that you hear things that you've heard in the past. A lot of hard rock music takes these patterns and just speeds them up. Now let's take a look at this last example for 12 measures so you can practice along. 1, 2, 3, 4. D, 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 C. G, G, D, D, D. D, 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 C. G, G, D, D, D. D, 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 C. G, G, D, D, D. I really hope this series has helped you gain a better understanding of basic strumming. In Strumming 102, we're going to be adding in up strums and learning how to work an eighth note into our patterns. We'll also see a dotted quarter note and eighth rests. If you enjoyed this series and it really helped you out, please consider subscribing. Ring the bell for the notifications so you can learn more and when your next lesson comes up. If you have questions, please put them in the comments below. I do enjoy compliments, but questions are always better. This way I know people are working on these patterns. Good luck and good practice.